The human whose name is written in this note shall die. This note will not take effect unless the writer has the person's face in their mind when writing his or her name. Therefore, people sharing the same name will not be affected. If the cause of death is written within 40 seconds of writing the person's name, it will happen. If the cause of death is not specified, the person will simply die of a heart attack. After writing the cause of death, details of the death should be written in the next 6 minutes and 40 seconds. This note shall become the property of the human world. Once it touches the ground, it arrives in the human world. The owner of the note can recognize the image and voice of its original owner, i.e., a god of death. The human who uses this note can neither go to heaven nor hell. If the time of death is written within 40 seconds after writing the cause of death as a heart attack, the time of death can be manipulated, and the time can go into effect within 4 seconds after writing the name. The human who touches the death note can recognize the image and voice of its original owner, a god of death, even if the human is not the owner of the note. The person in possession of the death note is possessed by a god of death, its original owner, until they die. If a human uses the note, a god of death usually appears in front of him or her within 39 days after he or she uses the note. Gods of death, the original owners of the death note, do not do, in principle, anything which will help or prevent the deaths in the note. The god of death has no obligation to completely explain how to use the note or rules which will apply to the human who owns it. A god of death can extend his life by putting human names in the note, but humans cannot. A person can shorten his or her own life by using the note. The human who becomes the owner of the death note can in exchange half of his or her remaining life get the eyeballs of the god of death, which will enable his or her to see human's name and remaining lifetime when looking through them. A god of death cannot be killed even if stabbed in his heart with a knife or shot in the head with a gun. However, there are ways to kill a god of death, which are not generally known to the gods of death. The conditions for death will not be realized unless it is physically possible for that human or it is reasonably assumed to be carried out by that human. The specific scope of the condition for death is not known to the gods of death either, so you must examine and find out. One page taken from the death note, or even a fragment of the page, contains the full effects of the note. The instrument to write with can be anything, e.g. cosmetics, blood, etc., as long as it can write directly into the note and remains as legible letters. Even the original owners of the death note, gods of death, do not know much about the note. You may also write the cause and or details of death prior to filling the name of the individual. Be sure to insert the name in front of the written cause of death. You have about 19 days according to the human calendar in order to fill in a name. Even if you do not actually possess the death note, the effect will be the same if you can recognize the person and his or her name to place in the blank. The death note will not affect those under 780 days old. The death note will be rendered useless if the victim's name is misspelled 4 times. Suicide is a valid cause of death. Basically, all humans are thought to possess the possibility to commit suicide. It is, therefore, not something unbelievable to think of. Whether the cause of the individual's death is either suicide or accident, if the death leads to the death of more than one than the intended, the person will simply die of a heart attack. This is to ensure that other lives are not